Guten Morgen, good morning all. Dorian is my name. Thank you that you're here. I think we start, right? It's 10 o'clock. Erste Frage, machen wir das in Englisch oder machen wir das in Deutsch? Schweizerdeutsch oder Hochdeutsch? Dialekt, wer versteht Dialekt nicht? Hand auf. Ich verstehe ihn auch nicht. Dialekt ist gut. Okay, goed. Dan machen wir das so. Ja, we praten een beetje Nederlands, natuurlijk.
No, I only speak English, French and
Ja,
Italian.
we praten een beetje Nederlands. No? Okay, so we should do it in English, because otherwise...
No. I mean, if the majority wants to,
No, absolutely. We do it in English. Absolutely.
Then we do it in English.
Thank you.
No, we do it in English. All good. That's why I asked.
It's only in Swiss German. Totally okay.
You don't speak Swiss German?
I do.
You do. And you speak Swiss German?
No, he doesn't.
You don't?
So that's fine.
What language do you speak then?
English, French, Italian.
Parliamo italiano, naturalmente. Ma sì, certo. Okay. We like that. Okay, let's do it in English then. Right? Lingua franca. Okay, lingua franca. So, good morning. Dorian is my name. I'm one of the co-founders of Scuro. Scuro is a Zurich-based company, but we're internationally present. Who of you is from Switzerland, if I ask? You might know one of my former companies called local.ch. When we digitized the whole of the Yellow Page book some 20 years ago. Pagine gialle. You remember those days when there were telephone books? Physical telephone books, that existed, my friends. So here's the question I ask for 25 years. Who of you has in the last 7 days used a telephone book to find either an address for a restaurant, a car rental, a hotel, whatever? Hands up. Okay, who of you has in the last 7 days used whatever directory, can be Google, can be Bing, can be in Switzerland, Telsearch, whatever, local, to find out a restaurant address? My friends, that's an industry in transformation. I asked this question for 25 years, and 25 years ago it was exactly reverse, right? There was no online option, or very early ones, right? And you had the people on the bloody edge that would use that online option, and all the others would go for the print book. That's change. And I think we're exactly in that same moment again. I've been in that IT industry for 35 years, no, not 35, 30 years. And it's one of those moments where you have at the moment one of those groundbreaking moments where everything is about to change. And about that I want to talk. About that big bang I want to talk a bit today and what I think it will imply for wealth and asset management. All right? All of us over the past, 12, 15 months have been taken aback by this, right? All of us have been taken aback by ChatGPT doing this, ChatGPT doing that. Who of you has not used, I must ask the question this way, who of you has not used ChatGPT? Hands up. See? That's change. Who of you has used ChatGPT before December 22? Right? That's change. Within 1 year. Within 1 year. The technology, by the way, you know that? A is not new, it's about 5 years old. Right? You know where it was invented? Some 60 years ago, or no, actually by now 80 years ago in the UK, Bletchley Park. Then it was taken over by some folks over in what is today called the former USSR. Then it went over to the US. Eventually there were people here in Switzerland too, at the UPSI in Ticino, that came up with what's called the long short-term memory stuff some 20 years ago, and all of that led to the invention of these large language models that have taken us with such a surprise. And the big question today is, what will now happen? What's now the next step, right? And yes, indeed, we all have been really taken aback by these type of hype cycles. And you probably know this Gartner hype chart. I assume you do, the Gartner hype chart cycle, right? It goes absolutely through the roof, a peak of inflated expectations. Everybody talks about that and thinks the world's going to be super different today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow than it was ever before. And let's just open my talk with that. But the reality is it then goes through a value of delusionment. Here's the bet I offer today. Come after the talk to me and bet against me. My bet is the value of delusionment will come sort of end 24, beginning 25. And then it goes to the plateau of productivity. The interesting piece is this cycle normally takes 3, 4, 5 years if you look at normal technology adoption cycles. In this case here, as I said, it has been shrunk to about, 24 months. For people who take pictures, I feel very honored, but there is a better way. Get in touch and I send you the slides. Right? I'm more than happy to share the slides. So the question really is now, what happens next, right? What happens next? And today we are here at a finance conference. I do not have a finance background, I have a technology background. And I find this intersection very interesting as I have seen some of those major shifts. I just discussed that with the Yellow Page book. So I want to share a bit of this and how I think it's going to affect a part of the financial industry. Because if you look here as a next, here, hello. Yeah, here we go. If you look at the peak of inflated expectations, this was, no. What's the lag? No, I want back. Can I go back? This thing is a bit on autopilot. This thing is AI live. The gentleman over there is the live AI. One further, please. Yeah, we were here, right? And I just picked this up. Now it again doesn't work. Can you move one further, please? For whatever. Yeah, here we go. I just picked this up this morning from a most recently released report from the Boston Consulting Group, right? Where they asked, how has the adoption curve been of that most overhyped technology cycle in the last 20 years, right? You would expect, I would have expected, that after literally every newspaper, every discussion, every forum, every conference I go to, AI, you probably have heard these videos on Twitter where there is tons of people in, say, the quarterly earnings reports, AI, right? That we would be a bit further down the line. Fact is, if you look at that, 10% claim they have some operational deployment of that stuff. That's not much. That's not much. So question here to the audience. In your companies, how many of your companies have actual productive AI stuff in place? That's no, that's across. This is across. They did not make a differentiation between finance, industry, I don't know, healthcare, and so on. Here in this audience, how many of you guys have actual production level AI stuff? In what areas?
In finance, I'm actually a PhD in AI.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have a predictive model that creates lots of financial analytics.
In what company?
It's called Singularity Advisors. It's
Okay.
a branch of Singularity Foundation.
All right. Some other people?
We're just using like ChatGPT Pro for our startup, which is like
Startup? I would make a difference between startups and established companies. Startups have easy, they don't have any regulation. So who is in a regulated industry? There were people who rose their hands. Yeah?
In the finance industry.
Finance industry.
It's a platform that helps financial institution, utilize AI and generative AI
Okay.
to, manage portfolios.
All right. Cool. Other such experiences here you want to share?
Marketing technology, analysis of advertising.
Okay.
Not so much as well.
All right. So little pockets, right? All of you have Office in play in any of the companies. Right? Everyone. Right? This, not yet. So we're really at the beginning. And now the question is, what happens next, right? What happens, and this here, what happens next, right? And I picked this up when preparing for today's talk from the folks over at Deloitte, where they say, yeah, the excitement is high, but at the same time, there is also an uncertainty how actually to manage this whole thing, right? How to manage talent, how to manage the risks associated to it, how to actually deploy that into production level stage. So that explains probably why most organizations still are in pilot mode, right? Now, that said, I do think there is indeed maybe a misreading slightly, because what I have seen, if I go back to when the internet came, right? Who is here from US? Anyone from US? So with 25 years of difference, I can tell that story, right? Back in the 90s, we did invent Namix, which became one of the largest e-business consultancies here in Switzerland. And we did that as a spin-off at the University of St. Gallen, who you might know or not. And at the time, back in 96, we went to UBS and showed them the first web page to the top brass with Professor Schmidt, who was my supervisor for the PhD. You know what his answer was? Not his, Beat Schmidt's, but the answer of the top brass of UBS. We don't need a web page. Money is trust. People come to our branches. And then Beat Schmidt had this Steve Jobs type mantra, oh, I have one more thing. And we showed at the time, there is still traces of that, the first PC to PC money transfer. There were obviously electronic transfers in the banking system for decades before. But PC to PC in Switzerland, that was novel, right? So we showed them with a project called Telecounter, a PC to PC money transfer. You know what the answer was? Would Professor Schmidt not been around, I believe the security services would have guided us outside the door, right? Right? It took the UBS roughly about 20 years, because I received a letter, what was it, 2015 or so. If you don't do e-banking, some of you here in Switzerland remember those days where you had to hand in those slips, right? Put them into a little envelope and send it to the processing center of UBS. If you don't do e-banking, you need to pay more. Remember those days? That was about 2015 or so, 2016. So it took them roughly about 20 years to come full cycle. Now, I do not want to bitch in that sense about UBS, because the same thing happened all over the place. Any other industry went through that same adoption cycle. And I think that's the important element, right? The adoption cycle, my old buddy and at the time CEO and by now venture partner at B2 Ventures, Andreas Goldi, plotted that the other day. While the attention curve follows that hype cycle pattern of what Gartner says, the actual adoption curve follows a slightly different pattern. It lags. But the change is even more fundamental than you expected it at the beginning to be, right? Back in 96, 97, we were going to Mercedes-Benz and told them, you actually can sell cars online, right? We even had a little shop, went to Mercedes-Benz as part of that institute and showed them, you can sell cars online. They literally sent us back home, right? Tesla built their entire franchise on selling cars online, right? And in that sense, I think what we're now about to see is exactly the same adoption curve. So to kind of like position that a bit, I do think this type of GenAI stuff, and we heard a couple of examples, today will empower, say, a client advisor to do all types of stuff, navigate complexities, and also get faster access to data sets. Because the sheer volume of data, of regulation, of investment advice, of all the stuff that she needs to know to be a good partner to a potential or to an actual client is sheer overwhelming. So, you know, to look at that from a more holistic point of view, I sketched out here sort of an end-to-end advisor workflow. And I looked at where could these type of technologies impact such a workflow? You know that better than me, you're all financial services professionals. But if you start, say, from the relationship management part, from the onboarding part, all the way to kind of like performance reporting, and then also the whole back office stuff, where will this type of Gen AI stuff strike? Any ideas about that? Here's my view. Everywhere. Literally everywhere. And in the next 20 minutes I want to discuss, or 10 minutes we have left, I want to discuss a bit how, right? But to get going, I thought I'd bring you along what we do at the moment. Because it's all here in a set, the demo set. I screen captured that yesterday late. Here as an example, give me some financial advice, right? And then yes, the system goes and figures this out. It shows you the element. I took here some publicly available fidelity reporting and so on. And you can continue. That's part of that workflow. Give me an overview of how I do margin lending because the prospects are so great. I want to make money on the markets, right? So let me do some margin lending. And sure, it kind of like does that automatically, taking it out of, as an example, whatever documents we have served the system. You probably have seen that, right? And all that, right? You can even get a summary on the whole thing. Yeah, here we go. You don't need to read it. Maybe you should, but at least you get now a summary view of it. And because that's so highly valuable, you even can go and effectively open up an account, right? We do that in the US for some of the largest wealth managers, such as Rockefeller, and it's great fun. Because not only it's fun to work with such organizations, but it actually changes the way they operate, right? It allows a refocus of client advisor time to what he should do better, talk with customers, instead of dealing with the complexities of what the financial markets need to endure today, all that regulatory stuff, right? And we probably have seen that, right? Maybe you have experimented with that. It's hard stuff, right? Here's a little question. I'm a vendor, I freely admit that, right? Who of you does build that in-house in your organizations? Who of you starts to build that stuff in-house in your financial or services organizations? No one? You all go outside to pick up talent from the outside. It's a good thing, actually. Very good thing. So I'm a bit opinionated, I freely admit that. Here's the thing. Go back again to UBS. So when they initially told us UBS, no, we don't wait by page, right? Around 98, they changed their tack, right? Because it couldn't be denied anymore. Newsweek, front page, internet is here to stay. So even the Swiss banks at the time, not yet as international as they are today, had to act, right? You know what they did? They tried to build a content management system themselves, right? They literally sunk millions into a multilingual content rendering system. And we told them, please believe us. I had a bit less gray hair, Andy Goldie and myself and all the other chaps, a bit less gray hair than today. And we said, guys, don't build a multilingual content rendering system yourself. It's complex. It looks easy on paper, right? It's trivial on paper, but the reality is it's tough stuff. Why? Just one example. We all know in Switzerland, 3 languages plus a half one, Romansh plus an English for being lingua franca. And let's suppose you have some of the client relationship advisory stuff only in English. How do you bring that now to the French people in the Romandie? Is it the English version? Is it the translated version? Which version is it? And here we are, right? It took them about 3-4 years, and then they went to Basel to buy a content management system off the shelf, which is called Communique. Some of you maybe still remember that. It was one of the few stocks that ever was technology stocks on the Swiss Stock Exchange. Was picked up by Adobe. It's today a multi-billion-dollar business coming out of Basel. We can be proud about that. And then the UBS did one thing clever. They built quotes. You know quotes, UBS quotes, right? So UBS quotes, for those who don't, back 20 years ago, if you wanted to get sort of near real-time access to stock exchange data, it was tough, it was difficult. And there were 3 options in Switzerland at the time. There was Borsellino, long gone. There was the early version of Swissquote. And then finally UBS got the tack, because you cannot buy Swiss quotes, or better say quotes, from any content management vendor. This is a bank USP. This is a bank USP. Multilingual content rendering is not. And it's the same here, right? We go into the depth of such a rack stack. Such a rack stack is tough stuff. And my advice to all of you guys, don't build that yourself. You don't need to build it with me. Obviously we laugh, but we don't need to do that, but don't do it yourself. Because it's tough stuff. And I'm happily explaining where the tough stuff is. Because what you already see today, if you apply it, you can get bottom line competitive improvements. There's no question about that. You can effectively get and streamlined access to the relevant information. That's no question about that. And now you say, where is it? Is it that? Is it that? Is that it? No, it's not. So here's another analogy from when I built local with my team. You know what the average query length was when we built that back in 2006 or 4 to 2009 or so? Average query length of somebody, we had at the time more than 90% of the active Swiss internet population, our guests, multiple times a week. You know what the average query length was at the time? 1.23 keywords. That is not to express restaurant in Zurich. You can either express Restaurant zu, no, you want an open restaurant, or you can say Zürich Rest. Obviously, the people in Basel and Bern would prefer that to be the case, but it's not what you search for. You search for a restaurant in Zurich, not for Zurich resting and snoozing. 20 years on, you know what the Google average keyword length is, query length is? 3.4 keywords. 3.4. That is not a full sentence, my friends. That's not a full sentence. Now, you tell me that suddenly, all the magic, everyone here in the room, myself included, with more gray hair than ever, could now start to formulate consistently good prompts, complex prompts that are equate to full sentences? I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that. Just don't buy that. And by the way, type ahead on full sentence expansion is tough stuff, right? Now, that's why I said at the beginning, I think that chat hysteria will a bit wane off over the next couple of months. You will see specific use cases, say in marketing, where the hallucination piece is actually part of the feature set, not part of the not so cool set of stuff of what these LLMs do. But in everyday life, you will see, that's my bet, a wane off of this. But now, to say, oh, that's it, let's go and case closed, I think is not the right thing. Because there is so much more opportunity in that technology setup around automating routine tasks, around the regulatory and compliance support, around personalized insights, seamless employee collaboration. And I want to show that to you. Because the actual challenge that I do see also for US financial services organizations is this. If you look at this super simplified portrait value chain diagram of, and it's super simplified, I freely admit, all of these boxes, product, transaction, service support, sales marketing, the risk management, collaboration, bank infrastructure, and you say it's different in your case, think of this simply as a simplified version of the world, right? Each of these boxes in itself has lots of IT tool sets in it, right? And for good, sometimes bad reasons, they do not have the same language. I have not seen a CRM that seamlessly talks to an ERP, that seamlessly talks to a finance system. Have you? I haven't. And that's for good reason, right? Especially if in a fast-paced environment, as an example, with product catalogs that change continuously, it becomes a nightmare to deal with. And all of you have seen this back-end integration stuff, or maybe lately the RPA stuff, where you try to do front-end integration. And most of these projects have failed. We agree? Now, here's the thing. Who says that I need to chat with a machine? What about if a machine chats with a machine? Right? What about if a machine chats with a machine? To deal with that enterprise data ambiguity, because that's the key thing, right? For good reason, in most cases, and some bad reasons. In some cases, in any enterprise, you have data ambiguity, that the data sets from front to back are not streamlined. And here's the first time in all my career that I have seen a technology combination that allows you to deal with that data ambiguity. Effectively, that you allow a machine chat with a machine. And what you can then do, here we go, you can effectively start to automate entire process steps, right? And look a bit at the time. I want to move forward. What we do there is we expand that so-called retrieval augmented stack that normally is about you, at the very beginning, do some vectorizations with technical stuff. That is, you make the data available to an LLM. Then you effectively have a prompt, and you go to the LLM of choice. And what we now do is we expand that a bit with those 4 blue bots or sets. We implement a bit of guardrailing to make sure that whatever the input and output is, this is as to standard, you operate in a regulated industry, right? Hallucination is not an option. And even beyond hallucination, you need to respect the regulations in place. You want to use, as an example, graphing to do process graphing. You want to use an ability to actually interact with tabular operational data sets. It's called large language model. It's not called large numbers model. So you need to find a way around that. And at the end, you want to start to automate. And what you do with that is, I simply show that to you in this little video as an extract, how that works. Is it already half past? I have no watch. It's half past, right? I was told till 24, 10:40, so I'll wrap up quickly. And what you see here now is what we prepare with that, right? You can get financial advice. You can get effectively the steps where you go and see what happens. And then effectively what you can do is you can go beyond that, down to the level, as an example, of financial reporting, right? Where the system chats with the system, prepares that for you. And with that, what you get is a whole different level of interaction, of automation, of productivity. We have started to implement that with customers, and frankly speaking, I have never seen productivity jumps of that size. And we are still at the beginning. Now, because we started a bit late, I want to sum up very briefly. I think, and as I said, the slides are available. Yeah, here we go. Pick a case. There is lots of material how to do that. No, it doesn't work. You need to change the battery on that thing. How to do that, I'm happily distributing the things. The last part I want to make, and this is important to me, whether you do it with us or with somebody else, here is a question that you should ask before going into any such project, right? And I want to make that point very explicit. At the moment we're in the piloting phase. It's all easy, it's all fun. That said, this kind of technologies will have consequences like little seen before. And the switches you choose, the roads you travel to choose today have meaningful impact down the road. So things like, as an example, how you deal with security, with privacy in a financial industry is top concern. Things like, as an example, how do you evolve that over time? What's the openness to interact with other systems is critical. Otherwise, you're going to be locked in. Because don't forget, the bigger LLM vendors love to lock you in, right? That's their essential business model. With that, I come to an end. Very briefly, thank you for your attention. If there is time, I'm more than happy to answer any questions now or later. Thank you all. Yeah, here we go. Yep, go ahead.
First is there token limit? Like, do you have when you are using this platform per message, you guys have token limit there?
It depends on the underlying LLM, right? The token limit. The context window is the underlying LLM that gives us or doesn't give us whatever tokens, context window size. And then we use that and consecutively go and query the whole thing. Yeah.
And the LLM that you guys use, is
Yeah.
it like your own you guys have developed, or
No.
are you using like free-based GPT?
We use, the way we think about that, you have a foundational layer, right? A bit like 30 years ago with...
Because I built them, so that's why I'm curious.
you build LLMs?
Yeah,
We need to talk about that.
I'm PhD in AI, so.
Oh, okay. But then you know how tough it is to build a fully fledged LLM, number one. And you know that it is nearly impossible to build an LLM that adapts very fast to new data sets, right?
Yeah, I mean, but if you have a company with a specific mission, it can be done. So I was just curious.
No, yeah, it can be done. But here's the thing, right? The way we think about that is the following, and I'm more than happy to talk with you about what you do and maybe see how we can work together. 30 years ago, you had those large relational database layers. Oracle, Sybase, Ingress, whatever they were called, right?
Yeah, and they use SQL and all that.
SQL, exactly. And what then happened is you got those ETL layers on top, right, to extract, transform, load. And then you got on top the application layer. Salesforce is nothing else than an interface on top of an Oracle database with everything in between. And we think about that space exactly the same way. You have the foundational models, you have these wrapper layers, and then you have the application layer. And we specialize in that wrapper and application layer. We
Specialize in?
on that wrapper layer, the equivalent of the ETL layer, right? Or the RAG stuff I showed, right? And the underlying LLM, we pick and choose whatever there is.
Right.
What's the LLM you build?
We have been using an LLM that we built. It's called iChorus.
Okay.
It's our own. It's from the name is from Amazon, but the idea is to take multiple data sources,
Yeah.
especially in finance,
Yeah.
and be able to project them in higher dimensional space,
Yeah.
and then pull out insights. So it
Okay.
does everything from factorization,
Yeah.
evaluation, and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. And where do you do that? Where do you do that?
GPT, it can't do all that.
No.
We tried to do it.
No, sure not.
Yeah, I ask it to do a DCF, simple DCF.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can with your model do a simple DCF? But not more complex DCFs, right?
No, it can do
Yeah.
absolutely complex. We can use billions of data sets
Okay.
regarding any company.
Okay.
We'll do everything from DCF to pricing, to technicals, to...
How do you do that with, how do you get current information into the model?
How do we get current?
Yeah.
We have...
Because the stock exchange,
we buy...
stock exchange information changes on a subsequent
Yeah, we have a
base.
relationship
You will
with-
not be able to get on a subsequent, on a sub-second sequence the data into your LLM.
We have relationship with SIBA. So they give us a lot of data,
Yep.
and we use that data.
Sure, but how do you train the model with that?
How do we train the model?
The stock exchange, say company X, pick it Nestle, there is sub-second changes of the value of Nestle. That has a lot of impact on your financial modeling. How do you train that kind of data into
It's not
such a
like
model?
minute to minute or second to second, but it's almost like we use the past data that is available.
Yeah.
It's almost like it can be 3-day latency or something like that.
Okay, here we go.
So it's
All right.
not like
Okay,
it's not very much
Okay.
like second to second because
All right.
that's very hard to do.
that's my point.
Yeah.
That's extremely hard to do.
Yeah, but even if you have a 3-day latency,
That's good.
it's very good because
Yeah,
if
that's
you are
very good.
doing all that stuff, it gives you some sort of understanding.
Yeah. What is the that's your company or that's PhD?
That's my company. It's called SingularityAdvisors.ai.
Cool. And where you do that company here?
It's in U.S., Washington, D.C.
Washington DC. Cool. And what do you now do in Zurich here?